Now, how y'all doing? I just want to tell y'all that it's going to be important that you fully live out on your purpose. And when I think about Kendrick Lamar performance for me, first I'm going to say it was powerful. It was much more than just a performance. But it was like a play, right? Meaning he orchestrated something that had a meaning, something that required us to understand our history to an extent or to do research for the parts of it that we didn't understand. But whether you enjoyed it or not, I believe there were certain messages that we all can take away, right? So when I watched it, it was two messages that really came to me, right? The first one is that I believe that we have failed to come to understand that as a generation, that media is a medium that is not only used or not only seen by us as Black people from the United States, right? I think we failed to understand that media is a medium to which other people also see, and that media often can be the only vessel or medium of communication of the narratives of how we exist for people that never talk to us in person. And why is that important? Because imagine if people never seen or never talked to a Black person, only was left to the images and media to create a preconceived notion of who we are. What would they think of us? If the only images or predominant images of us as Black people, how we exist, of our entertainers and athletes, what do they think of us? So for Kendrick Lamar to do a performance where he knew that he needed to send a message, whether his peers understood or not, but the world needed to hear, is important. So when I looked at it, it was from a different lens because I am a journalist. You know, I do look at media just differently because I understand how media plays a role in the shaping of our identity. That when I looked at the performance, I looked at it as a message, as a statement that needed to be said. So I think the first thing I took away, just something I believe I needed to make sure we all understand, is that media is a medium that is not only consumed by us as Black African Americans from the United States, but is a medium that sends messages to the world. And we think as of media in its international scale, we have to come to understand the importance of being intentional with the images that we portray, not only of ourselves, but of others, because it plays a big role in not only how they see themselves, but how other people see them that never talk to them in person. The second big message that I thought was that Kendrick Lamar created a piece of art that was based off of certain references and symbols that require one to understand their past in order to understand their present. And why it's hard for us to understand it, or why some to understand it, is because a lot of us don't understand our history. So for him to put certain meta messages into the performance that if you don't know, you don't know, and have to research it, it's going to be hard for people to find it entertaining. But what I want y'all to understand is that it's going to be important that we all understand that there will come a time where we may have to deliver a message that our peers might not understand, but the world need to hear. It's been so many times throughout my trajectory and my presentation when I speak that I deliver a message that I know everybody in the audience may not get, but it needs to be said. And if you was to cage yourself in and say, I'm only going to speak to those that's in my environment, you also forget that your voice is bigger than just your environment. You fail to understand that there's people that need to hear your voice that's bigger than just your neighborhood. And just because your neighborhood don't understand, don't mean a message ought not to be delivered. So there's times where I go and speak and I have to be cognizant of the fact that whether everybody understand what I'm saying, if there's a time where I need to deconstruct it, I need to go up there and say the message that I believe needs to be said, whether those in my immediate environment understand it or not. Because I understand my voice has the ability to impact much more than just the people around me. And I'm saying that because I was speaking to a lot of youth. I do workshops at schools. And they're like, nah, I just feel like he was trying to be too deep. And what I'm trying to tell you is there's a time, and it's not even there's a time. It is important that people create art that requires us to do research. It's important. Why? Because history is being removed. But in order for me to even intrigue you to want to understand and do research to understand your history, I must give you something that requires you to do the research of it. Because if I never, I gotta reprogram you. I have to show you something for you to say, oh, let me feel inclined to even go and understand what that meant. So that was a big message that I took away, is that, yo, there is going to come a time when you have to deliver a message that your peers may not understand, but the world need to hear. And that's something that not just Kendrick Lamar understand, but we all need to come to understand. And the third thing is that it is okay to create pieces of art that require people to do research and to read further. I think that's the beauty of art, is that there's times where let's put it simpler. There's times where I read books and in the book he's saying something like, what are you talking about? And I have to look up what the author is speaking on. And then it helps me to learn something new. I like doing that. A prime example, I was reading what book was this? I don't want to lie. What book was this? I did the Booker T. Washington Up from Slavery. What was the book right before that I read, Jordan? Is it that? It's a book I was reading. I'm forgetting right now, but in the book, it makes a reference to this thing called Atalanta. And in my mind, I'm like, wait, is they talking about Atlanta? I'm like, why the author can't spell? But I looked up Atalanta, and it talked about a whole story of a woman that was fast. And her father, well, she would beat everybody in the race. So they do different competitions. She would beat people for their money, and she was beautiful. And all the men always wanted to have a shot. So one time the king was like, some man approached the king, was like, yo, could I marry your daughter? He said, you could marry her if you could beat her in a race. And he already knew no one could beat her because no one ever beat her. But as she was running with them, they did the race. They set up the race. As they was running, the man we kept doing was dropping these gold stones. And every time he dropped the gold stone, she would stop and look at it. And then he would keep running. She would run fast, about to pass him, he'd drop another stone. She would stop and look at it. You know when they say everything that glitter ain't gold? That's where it comes from. You have to understand these analogies. But what I'm saying is if the author never created or constructed a piece of art based on what it is that he knows that's part of the past, I would have never been inclined to even researching for me to understand that reference. So you can't be mad at an artist for using certain symbols that you may not understand because it requires you to do research. And that is a problem. And I'm not saying all of my generation, I never want to portray a single narrative story, but there are members in society that don't like to conduct further research. But you have to understand that there's some things that you have to look up because whether you acknowledge it or not, Kendrick Lamar is not the only person that puts in or implements meta messages in their art. In fact, everything that you watch growing up has certain meta messages that subconsciously programmed you to think a certain way. But you didn't even know it. You didn't know the movies you was watching growing up had certain symbols in it that you ain't recognized consciously, but subconsciously was programming you. And I find it so ironic that just 7 years ago, This Is America by, Childish Gambino came out and the world responded so much differently. So it also makes me think how far we have come and removed from history. Because just 7 years ago, we was all like, oh, this is America. I heard all these conversations. It was classes conducted upon a performance, upon a video. It was shown. And now Kendrick Lamar puts on a performance at the Super Bowl where it's much more than just black people in attendance. It was the president in attendance that needs to hear and see that message. And now that he does his performance, there's like a critique. Oh my God, that was boring. That drink was trash, but entertaining. And what I'm thinking of is like, this is, I'm going to speak how I speak, y'all. Be honest to you, you can see how programming is gradual. Because it took 7 years ago, we were so like, yeah, we want to do this. It was 2018. And we like, yeah, we want to do this. Yeah, This Is America was amazing. And then gradually, 7 years later, they started conditioning a generation that values less of their history. So when somebody makes a piece of art based on historical context, the reaction of society or other people is different now. We went from 7 years ago saying, yo, this is a piece of art, we need more like this, to 7 years later being a generation that's like, nah, we don't want to hear that. We want to be entertained. And I could go even further than that, but I want to stay on this, right? So now I want to tell you 3 things I took away that's from the symbols, right? The first one was Uncle Sam. Samuel Jackson was symbolic of Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam is a personification of America as like this game that's being orchestrated, which I agree, right? Because I don't see too much of a difference between Hunger Games, Squid Games in America when it comes to this illusion that money grants you freedom. I don't believe it. I believe it really is a game, and we are being programmed. Whether we agree or not, you just have to decide what you want to be programmed by. The second thing that really stood out to me as I'm thinking of it was the construction of the American flag, right? It just never dawned on me, but he constructed the flag with black people wearing certain colors that also made up the American flag. But when I thought about it, I looked at the red and the blue. I'm like, when I think of red and blue coming from my neighborhood, red is the Bloods, Crips is the blue, white, I'm thinking neutral. And it was ironic that the colors that constructed two of the largest gangs in America was also used to construct one of the largest gangs in the world, America. And that's a whole nother conversation, but we do understand that there's some places where when they see the American flag, they see a sign of terrorism, right? There's some people that see America as a gang as well. And I thought it was ironic that we used the colors of gangs to construct one of the largest gangs in the world, America. Thought that was interesting. So the first one was Uncle Sam. There was a construction of the American flag using black people because America was built on the back of our ancestors, and especially black men. But I think that was a great message also to emphasize, being that it's a time period where many of us as young black men feel as if we are being made to feel invisible. Not many people speak upon our contribution. We can often feel as if our voices are not being heard. So to see Kendrick Lamar use his platform to not just inform us that the construction of America is built on, the hands of black men and the contribution of our black women as well, but also to emphasize and empower us black men to understand that we have a contribution to where we are at, right? And I'll say like the last one, and I'm going through it in my mind so I can make sure I speak from the heart when it comes to how I first took in this performance, and then after even doing research on it. The last one I would say is, I like the Samuel Jackson. I love that orchestration of the game. That was dope. Yeah, I guess I'll just end it with what I really enjoyed most about that performance. I'm gonna say the prison yard. So I don't know if everyone caught it, but the reason why I even say that, because I believe that, being someone that graduated from Syracuse University, I don't think we ever had conversations about the mass incarceration, the prison industrial system, and just how it impacts the black community, especially as black men. And I think that him using that message was dope, right? Because he brought to the stage a conversation and a dialogue that often doesn't happen in traditional academic spaces. Nor do we as citizens have a conversation, and we fail to understand that we too play a role in the maintenance of certain oppressive structures, right? Because, in order for a prison system or for prisons in the industrial complex to still thrive or still be in existence today, is because we have also been conditioned to feel as if that is a justifiable punishment for those who have acted in the way in which we call deviant. But it's so much things that play a role in someone doing a crime, right? Poverty and its correlation to crime is big, right? So I think him just using a platform to construct his performance on a prison stage, knowing that black men are being mass incarcerated, was dope. So that's my message to it. And I believe that there's something that we all can learn from the performance, whether we thought it was entertaining or not. But the last message is the one I stated at the beginning, is that there will come a time when you may have to deliver a message that other people may not understand. But it is imperative that you still utilize your platform and your voice to deliver a message, whether those in your immediate environment understand it or not, because the world needs to hear your voice, and your voice is bigger than just your environment. So that's my reaction to Kendrick Lamar performance. I ask that y'all watch it again. Let's not let this be a one-time thing, because we tend to let things just fly. It's like he made a statement. Did we get the message? And if we got the message, let's move in accordance to it. So that's what it is, y'all. Join the channel, subscribe. I got more conversations coming. I'm gonna be breaking down certain things that's happening in media. If I believe this time period is gonna be important, that we are more attentive to what the narratives that are being portrayed in media are. So I just look forward to y'all subscribe to the channel, have more conversations and dialogue, and we're gonna build from here.